Good morning, everyone, to Awe Studio. Today, I'm going to be demonstrating how to paint the mighty oak because it's a very strong wood that has been used throughout history to symbolize courage, but also strength. So I hope you'll join me. I'm going to do a quick review of how to soak the wet on wet paper in case you haven't seen the free videos on my YouTube channel at Janet Leah on how to soak wet on wet paper, and it's also available on Patreon for free. But you'll want to get a couple of buckets ready so you can catch the water and not waste any water in this day and age. And then you take your paper, how many sheets you have, and you start submerging it into the water one sheet at a time. And I'll just do a couple here right now. But once you get the paper covered, then you simply drain off the water. And then, most importantly, you want to cover this paper with a sheet of plastic for 3 to 5 minutes so that it'll be prepared for you to paint. In order to do this painting, of course, I recommend that you have 2 buckets of water with you, one where you can wash off your yellows exclusively and the other for your red and blues, so you don't have to get up and change the water. You might want a selection of soft bristle brushes for watercolor, starting with large ones, and of course your wet on wet paints. And if you want to, you could review my free videos on how to prepare the wet on wet paints so that you get the best outcomes from your painting. And now let's start. I have the paper right over here, which you saw I pre-soaked, and so I'm just going to go over and peel off one of the sheets of paper, and you'll notice that when I do this, the paper will be perfectly soaked and I won't need to sponge it. And that saves me a lot of steps in my wet on wet painting, and also will make the painting come together better because the paper is correctly prepared. So now I'm going to just wet my largest brush, and I'm going to take this yellow, lemon yellow, and I'm simply going to let lemon yellow begin to spread quite freely on this left portion of my painting. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here on the right. Just let that lemon yellow spread out, and then take a little water you've washed off some of the yellow and let the yellow spread as lightly as you can downwards, so that when it reaches the bottom of the paper, it's very, very diffuse and light. And that's that. Okay, now let's wash off the brush and remove most of the yellow, and we're going to take the carmine red next. And we're just going to dip right in to the carmine red. And somewhere here, we're just going to allow this carmine red to spread up, but also it's going to spread down. As it comes up, it's going to make big gestures. And see how wet and runny it is? That's really great. In fact, look at these drops I just put on over here. That's fine because they're going to become large oak branches anyway. This is going to stretch upward and create very large branches which move across the page in a wet and fluid manner. I want you to just keep coming back to the beautiful thickness of the red and allowing your brush to go over what you did before. Deciding if you want to add little branches at the corners of your brush as you go. And then I want you to take your brush and just dry it on the rag. You don't even have to wash it off. And I want you to come through with this dry brush and just pull off a little bit of the wetness here and there. Not everywhere, but just where you feel like, oh, okay, I want this branch to show a little bit more. So I'm going to reduce a little bit of the wetness as I go. But you can see it's quite wet. So we want to start very wet so we can breathe out and feel the power of the oak. And then you can wash your brush off, dry it on the rag, make sure it's really clean this time, because I want you to tip your yellow jars and go right down into that thick pigment of yellow at the bottom. Really sop it up with your brush so you get a lot on there. And we'll start right down here in what we're going to consider the ground. And as we move up, I'm going to allow this to get strong. From here, we're simply going to go over what we did again and again, changing it as we wish, but also strengthening what we think is this really powerful gesture of the tree. It's very big, as you can see, and that's what we want, a thick, strong, powerful trunk. And you may decide, okay, over here I don't really need this red, so I'm going to put a little water right on this part. And then I'm going to take my rag, dry the brush, and I'll do the wipe and swipe on the rag. One wipe, one swipe. And look at the clarity I can pick up there. And if you get yours that clean, then you can come back with yellow and replace that so that it will become the same as the background. All right, now we're ready to try and create a little bit of brown. So you're going to wash your brush off in the yellow water, then wash it off in the clean water. And we'll start by taking a small amount of Prussian blue. And as we put the Prussian blue onto the red, it's going to become more brown. Now I bet a lot of you are looking at it and saying, well, this looks dark compared to the red, and indeed it does. But the more you mix it, the more of a red-brown it's going to become. And we're going to come back on top of this with red again to create more and more definition to these mighty limbs that are stretching out. And as you can see, the paper is very wet, which I love because then it allows us to create things that we didn't decide on, but rather the painting seems to be telling us about. So if we wash off the brush and dry it in between, can say, okay, this branch is really coming down like this, reaching down towards the earth here, and this branch is probably going out, and this one is coming up. We can see that some of the orange that has been swimming around in the bloom of the color doesn't need to be there. Some of it can be wicked away with our wipe and swipe technique. This is a very important technique for wet on wet, because wet on wet is very fluid, and anyone who's ever done it knows how washy things get with wet paper and wet paints. And so we're trying to form it out of the watery element, because that watery element really helps us to see things in an unexpected way, in an uncontrived way. And then whatever we didn't want from the reds, we'll replace with a clean yellow. So down here, we have a very nice yellow. As long as I'm painting yellow now, I'm not touching any browns, then I don't really have to clean off my brush. If I go in here or here, I have to wash my brush off before I go back into the yellow, or I'm going to pollute it. And then I'll have to stop and clean everything out. So I'm careful to wash my brush in between and dry a little bit. And I wash and I dry. And I continue in this manner to form the mighty oak from the outside with the yellow. And then when you've gotten a good long ways, you're going to tip that red jar, get some pigment down in there, and again, you'll come right back into the shape of the tree with a stronger red. Now you can see that the tree is beginning to be drier on the paper, and I can actually see how the branches are working. Continue using this red, following exactly what my tree is telling me to do. Here's a little hump, and then it comes down this way. And you see I'm still using my large brush. This is fine. For this work, it's just great. Make sure your tree is not tilting. It's very important that it be upright. Oak does not bend. Finally now, we're going to add some greenery around this beautiful trunk of tree. So I want you to maybe graduate down to a smaller brush like this size, or if you're uncomfortable with that, you could even go down to a really small one. And you just simply take your Prussian blue and a little bit of water, and simply going to add some greens there on both sides. Sorry about that knocking, patrons. Please try to ignore that. Just let yourself feel the comfort of the color. You can pick it up over here and put it in over there. And little bits of yellow can definitely show through here. You can add little bits of dark. You can take the different shades of green and put them in. Small tapping gestures can come on top of the green with a little bit of blue. And finally, take your green and accentuate a little bit of darknesses in the trunks. In the limbs. And we'll be finishing a little more details into our oak in our next tier, the imagination tier, with some gouache overlay. But for now, you can see how the trunk can be created with some light strokes from our brush that even give defined details, gnarly details, because the oak is really quite a bumpy, gnarly tree. Just keep feeling it out until it seems really natural to you. Final thing I'm going to do today, patrons, is just add a little bit of yellow into the trunk again to create a little bit more brown. And as I get a red brown with the mixture of red, lemon yellow, and Prussian blue, I can then begin to add a little bit of this brown hints into the wooded part. I don't have to go over everything, but just add little bits here and there. I can even skip from here right out into branches that are up there. You don't have to follow the exact growth of the tree. However, it does help to make them lighter, tinier gestures as you work up into the tree, and more gnarly and large down at the bottom. I hope that you'll find, like I have this morning, that this picture has brought me strength. And I feel more confident and well. And I want that for all of you too. So I hope you'll try this and see me on the next Patreon.